So far in my videos, when I've been taking my frequency distribution tables and turning them into graphs, I've been using histograms. And I've been saying that for numerical data, quantitative data, or interval ratio data, any kind of numerically measured quantities like we've got here. These are the number of passengers that are on tour buses. For numerical data, I've been saying you need to use histograms. And we have an example of a histogram that we went through here. But there is another method that we can use, and that's called the polygon. You're not going to see polygons as much in this course, but they do expect you to know how to make them. So I'm going to take the same data set that we've got here, and instead of creating a histogram like we just went through, I'm going to show you how to make a polygon. Now, a polygon and a histogram are very, very similar. I'd like to try and see if I can keep my histogram up while I'm doing that. But I do need to move it out of the way a little bit. I want you to be able to see them sort of side by side. So let me see if I can get that done. Okay, so there we go. We've got the histogram moved up out of the way, and now I should have enough space to create a polygon. But what is a polygon? Well, with the polygon, instead of creating bars, you just put a dot in the place of each one of your categories. And because a bar covered an entire category, because we had a bar cover 25 to 29, we didn't really need to wonder where to put that bar. But a dot just takes up a single point, and so we have to decide where to put it. To best represent our category, the dot will go right in the middle of the category, and it'll be representing the midpoint of the category. So in other words, if I have a category that runs from 25 to 29, I need to find the midpoint of that. So it's like finding the median of this set of numbers. Now that's not too difficult, because you can see that if you count in 2 steps from either side, you get to 27. It's not always going to be this straightforward. Sometimes there won't be a middle number. An easy way to make sense of it, or an easy way to quickly come to the midpoint, would be just to add the 2 outside numbers of your category and divide by 2. So 25 plus 29, that gives me what? 54. 54 divided by 2, that gives me 27. So you can do that in every case that you're trying to find the midpoint of a category or of a grouped frequency interval like we've got here. So let me show you how I'm going to use this 27. That's my midpoint for that one. Let's put a few of these midpoints up. It's going to be 32. If I were to take the average of 35 and 39, if I were to add these two and divide by 2, I would get 37 and 42, 47, 52, 57, 62, and 67. So these are my midpoints. And the midpoints are going to be what I put on my x-axis when I make my new polygon. So let's do that now. Let's set up the polygon. We're still going to have the same axes. It's going to be our vertical and our horizontal axis. The horizontal axis is still going to keep track of x. The vertical axis will still keep track of frequencies. And so my frequencies are still going to range from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the bottom, it's going to be a little bit different. Actually, one thing that I have to do is I have to create a little bit more space. Actually, I'm not going to bother with that right now. I'll discuss that in a few minutes. So I need to have the same kind of categories. I'm just going to line them up here. Okay, so now I label each one of these categories just with my midpoint. So my midpoint in the first one is 27, and then 32, and then 37, and so on. 42, 47, 52, 57, 62, 67. And instead of drawing a bar, I put a dot at the intersection where the two of those meet. So right here is my first data point, because 27 has a frequency of 1, and then 32 has a frequency of 1. So I'm going to make sure that that lines up. And then 37 has a frequency of 5. And so that's going to be right up here. 42 has a frequency of 3. "47 has a frequency of 2. "52 has a frequency again of 5. 57 has a frequency of 5. And then 62 has a frequency of 2. And 67 has a frequency of 1. Now, the idea is we connect these with straight lines. And when we get to our endpoints, we go ahead a step to the middle of our next category. So we go to the middle of the next category and we bring it down to 0. Now here's something that I was saying before. I need to actually have a middle over here. Normally I would shift this whole thing over. Actually, I think I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to shift the whole thing back, or at least I'm going to try to, without mucking the whole thing up. Okay, so let's see if I can move this over a bit. All right, that's pretty good. And the reason I'm doing that is because I need to actually have another category here to bring back this down to the middle of. So there is my polygon. So I've got my histogram here, and this is the polygon. They both contain the same information, and they both give us the same general shape. They just go about presenting it in a slightly different way. I find the polygon is a lot more work to have to go through, and it doesn't really give you anything extra. It's not entirely appropriate for this kind of data anyways. This is usually used to show changes over time. However, if they ask for a polygon for a particular set of data, this is what you're going to need to give them to get full marks. So this is our polygon for the number of passengers on a tour bus data, side by side with the histogram. If I could, I would overlap them over top of each other so you could see that they truly are the exact same representation of data, but I think you can see that. That's like here's where my bar, if I had my bar would be like right there and there. So it's really just the same thing all over again. You're just doing it with dots instead of bars. So polygons, histogram, they both deal with quantitative data, so data where you're dealing with numerical measurements, and I guess that's it. Just have to remember to use the midpoints instead of using the category intervals like I did for a histogram.